Hi, I'm Nicole. I grew up in Denton, Texas. I've pretty much lived here my entire life. I grew up in a household that just loved Jesus, loved the Lord, took me to church every Sunday, took me to Awanas on Wednesday night, church camp, and VBS in the summer. Pretty much anything that I could have done related to the Lord or related to the church, I did it. I came to know the Lord at a very young age, but I never really understood the gravity, I think, of what Jesus did. Since I think because it was something I had heard from a very young age and it was so normal and was so natural for me, I just didn't get it. And it took a long time for me to really understand the importance of who God was, the importance of what he did for us, and just the fact that I'm sinful and broken and I need a savior. I'm in need of redemption and of constant grace. I was just constantly taught what it means to pray, what it means to try and glorify God. Don't do this, don't do that, do this instead, all those things. I think over time it really manifested a need for perfection in my life. It manifested a need to be seen and to be recognized as this human being who doesn't mess up and who's flawless almost. My biggest was school. I took pride in just my grades and doing well. It was the things that I could control. I was the only one who could control those things, and they had to be perfect. I had to get all A's. I had to do the best that I could do on that test. I had to come home and be the perfect daughter. Whatever it was, I had to reach perfection in that. And that carried on through high school and college, and even to this day at times I still find myself in that, and just kept searching for this need to be perfect. But I kept trying to find other people's approval in that. I kept trying to find my parents' or my teachers' approval, just Sunday school teachers, you name it. I just wanted their approval. In college, I went to DBU for the first year and a half of school, and I was all of a sudden surrounded by girls who were also imperfect, just like I was, but they weren't looking to be perfect. They were looking to love the Lord, and they were looking to know the Lord, to know each other better, to love each other better, and that was something I hadn't really seen before. And all of a sudden, this need to be perfect, it was still there, but my perspective of it was shifting a little bit. I saw, where if I got this horrible grade on something, it wasn't the end of the world, because ultimately that's not what mattered at the end of the day. I saw where if I disappointed them in some way, yes, it still hurt, but at the end of the day, all of a sudden, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. I started seeing that in them, and then I started asking myself, why can I not feel that same way about this? Why can I not understand the fact that my need for order or perfection, or this desire to feel recognized for the work that I put into things, why can I not feel gratification in not having that? And I recognize, my perfection only comes from one place, and that is the Lord. He's the only perfect one. And I will never obtain that. I will never reach that. And I think even after I transferred to UNT and moved back home to Denton, there was still that need for that, but I saw myself not holding on to that as much. The Lord really started taking control out of my life. I had to hit rock bottom and recognize, hey, you're not in control of your life, ultimately. You are not in control of where the Lord takes you and who the Lord makes you to be. He had to bring me down to a place where I'd recognize I wasn't in control. I was broken, I'm a sinner, I still am, and he had to bring me down. He had to humble me, and I had to recognize, who was really the perfect father, the perfect savior, the perfect author of my life. And it's not me, it's God, it's the Lord. And I think once I saw other people, the reason why they didn't have that need for perfection is because they recognized that in the Lord. They recognized that their desire to know the Lord, their desire to be known by the Lord, overruled everything. Their desire to glorify the Lord overruled their need for control. And so just seeing that in a lot of the different girls that I was around at DBU, and then whenever I transferred to UNT, the same thing, it started to drive it home for me, and I started recognizing, I have to surrender my life. I have to surrender control ultimately to God, because I don't have any. And this constant need for it, this constant need for perfection, for control, it's exhausting, and it's going to wear me down, it's going to wear me out. And I don't have the strength to continue like that. Like, I don't have the strength or the mindset or the ability to day in and day out continuously seek for perfect control, because it's not mine and I'm not going to obtain it. I think once I recognize that, there's a lot more joy, there's a lot more just happiness when things didn't go the way that I wanted. There was a sense of peace often when things didn't go the way that I had planned, because I was trusting in the Lord to take care of me through that. I was trusting in the Lord to bring me through it as well. And so I think it's just really cool to see too, like, the more you surrender yourself, the more that the Lord continuously breaks down barriers, and He continuously tests you in that, a lot of that, but ultimately, like, He's right there with you through it. And I think for me recently, that's been really cool to see, is just in myself, that need for perfection, that need for control, surrendering more of that to God and just letting Him ultimately be the author and the savior of my life, in every single aspect of it. It brings about much more joy, much more happiness. I am not worth the Lord's actions of sending His Son. I am not worth that grace, but yet He still chose that. And I think that's just something, like, even now that I still see, of like, day in and day out, like, the Lord still pursues me, even on the days that I stumble. And I think that's just something for me that's been really cool to see, just in my life recently, is just how the Lord pursues me and the directions that He takes me. You can't go wrong with God. And I think that's the really cool part about being a believer and being a Christian, and just giving your life to the Lord.